Hello everyone, it's Vandiril here, and today we're gonna go back in time a little bit and I'm gonna try to tell you what champions were meta back in 2010. I'm gonna talk about solo queue from my experience and then about the pro play based on the data I managed to gather. Let's roll! Let me start with a story of mine. I started playing League of Legends in June 2010, so before Season 1 even started, because Season 1 started on 13th July 2010. League had slightly over 50 champions at that time, and around the time I started playing the game, Kog'Maw was released. The next two champions that got released, I remember them very well, Xin Zhao and Vladimir, and the reason I remember them so well is because they seemed to be really strong at release. So the very first champion I played in my life was Veigar, and I didn't really like him at first. I played one game of Veigar and I wasn't really satisfied with it. Then I tried Soraka, and I actually enjoyed Soraka because I was able to heal myself and give mana to myself. So at that time I felt like Soraka was a better thing, but those were my two very first games I ever played. First champion I really got to play a lot was Shaco, but you have to keep in mind that Shaco was way stronger back in the time. Q had better range and better duration, his ultimate clone lasted 30 seconds. Yes, 30 seconds. And yes, it had 60 seconds cooldown at rank 3. And what's even better is that you were able to revive your clone with Guardian Angel. The other one champion that I really liked back in the time was Ryze. Yeah, this Ryze. Or maybe I should say the Ryze before his rework, and before his another rework, and before his yet another rework. I loved him for his absurd AoE damage back in the time. Regarding solo queue, I remember champions like Shaco, Shen or Heimerdinger being banned a lot, but keep in mind I wasn't a very high elo player back in the time. So Heimerdinger used to be able to have 6 turrets at once for some time, and combine that with the fact that at max rank his turrets were dealing AoE damage, and if you used your ultimate you were also slowing like crazy, and you didn't even need to be close to those turrets to actually get a kill, so that was really good. And also back in the time most champions didn't really have good mobility, that's one of the reasons that Heimerdinger was pretty good back then. And the other top pick was Shen. Do you guys know that back in 2010 Shen's ultimate used to shield not only his teammates but also himself? You could legitimately ult someone in the middle of the fight and that would be successful. I also remember champions like Amumu, Garen or Malphite being banned, but keep in mind as I said that I wasn't a very high elo player back in the time. Before I focus a bit more on competitive aspects of 2010, I wanna say that for this video I partnered with DreamTeam.gg, which is esports and gaming recruitment and management network. Some of you may know the site from their CSGO platform, but recently they also launched League of Legends platform. Here you can look for a team or teammates, find tournaments, managers or coaches. What's more, you can also use a very helpful analytics from the page. To start everything, just register on the site. At first you're gonna set email, name and passwords, and then you will be asked for your server and name to be verified. After you do it, your rank will pop up. In this season I have plat 4 so far. You can then adjust the bar to match your skill level. Then just pick the roles you play and possibly add your tactical skills, like being a shot caller or in-game leader. Remember, DreamTeam GG isn't only for competitive players, you get to choose the option whether you play competitively, professionally or simply for fun, so you don't need to be a challenger to look for a team. After this, just add more personal details and voila, just verify your email and you're ready to go. To try it out yourself, go check out my link in the description that will take you straight to DreamTeam GG website. Okay, now let's try to see what champions were played by pro players back in 2010. It may be pretty difficult to find out because first World Championship and World Championship qualifiers were held in the middle of 2011. But there is one event that I'm gonna focus on that happened in September and October in 2010. It was pretty much a promotion event for League of Legends, but it can show you how League of Legends looked back in the time. There were only 4 teams in that tournament, however, for example in the qualifiers CLG had to go through, there were 128 teams. So the core tournament had these 4 teams: North American CLG, German SK Gaming, Another Story from Singapore, and China Hero from China. Many of you may know people from CLG roster. Especially worth noting is that Kobe played in CLG back in the time, the guy that many of you currently know as a great caster in NALCS. What's worth noting is that one guy from this tournament is still an active player, and that's Choi from Another Story. He's currently playing for Hong Kong Attitude Organization. Regarding the games at World Cyber Games in 2010, sadly there isn't footage available for all of them, and the games that we can find out are in a pretty poor quality, but this is the best we have. So in this tournament, teams were allowed to have 2 bans per game. The absolute top number 1 pick of the tournament was Morgana. She was banned or picked in all of the games at this tournament. And she wasn't just a support, she was actually played in the top lane, and her opponents, for example, were Annie or Miss Fortune. Back in that time we didn't have a specific meta as we have now. There were games where there weren't even 2 junglers. Some teams just opted for duo top lanes instead. For example, in CLG versus Another Story game 1 of the semi-final, Tristana and Sona were facing Miss Fortune in the top lane, and in the bot lane we had Shen and Galio versus Blitzcrank and Twisted Fate. Back in the time where there weren't so many champions with gap closers or escapes, CC champions have been heavily prioritized. And yeah, this was also the time when Ashe mid was a thing. When you think about it now, those picks in these lanes seem to be insane. Another champion that was always picked or banned was Garen. This might be a surprise today, but considering that most champions didn't really have good mobility, Garen was actually a solid pick back in the time. Another top tier pick that was picked or banned in almost all games was Miss Fortune. One of the reasons for that is that she got released just 3 weeks before this tournament, and she was really strong at the time. Champions like Orgot, who was recently released, Katarina, Corki, Tryndamere, Evelynn, Teemo or Drax weren't picked even once at this tournament. There were clearly some very OP picks back in the time, even more than at the moment. There was also one more tournament held in 2010, and it was Newegg Winter One Fest 2010. Sadly, I only managed to find one video regarding that event, and it was just a game from qualifiers. This tournament was also won by CLG after defeating teams like Team OP or Rock Solid, who at the time already had Skara and Voyboy in their squad. IMAQTPie or Judd, who is another great NALCS caster, both joined that team a bit later on. Rock Solid themselves had to play some powerhouse teams including Wu-Tang or No Girls Allowed, and the No Girls Allowed team got into round 2 by defeating a team called Nice Work Top Lane. You can see the teams back in the time had really creative names. It's fair to say that a lot has changed since 2010. Game has grew a ton, tournaments changed, prize pools drastically increased, and the meta game also changed. Most of the champions picked at the WCG tournament received either completely reworks or major gameplay changes until this day. The game has massively evolved since that time, and I am happy that I was able to witness all of that myself. As a sad finish note, I'm gonna say that I really wish the community remained as nice and friendly as it was back in 2010. Thank you guys a lot for watching, hope you enjoyed, take care and have a great day.